Chapter: The universe is infinite in size and age. The Big Bang and expanding universe theories are probably false. It seems very likely that the universe is not expanding and that there was no Big Bang, as hard as that is to accept or understand for many people. The best reason for this that I can give is simply that there must be many galaxies so far away that not one particle of light emitted from them can reach us in the tiny part of the universe that we occupy. Any so-called background radiation, why do they never say background light particles, can only be light particles from light sources that are near enough to reach us. When we build a bigger telescope and then receive light from more distant sources, will we then say that the universe just got bigger and older? Given this simple truth, it seems likely to me that the universe must be infinite in size, age, and scale. Either theory, Big Bang, or infinite universe, are difficult to comprehend. I find the infinite universe view far more interesting and likely. In this view, the universe is infinite in size and age, with no beginning or end in space or time. The universe is probably infinite in scale, too. Stars, galaxies, or even galactic clusters might be only light particles at some larger scale, and likewise, light particles at our scale might be stars, galaxies, or galactic clusters on some smaller scale. At any scale, light particles just bounce around forming different structures. In this sense, nothing really changes when a body is born, lives, or dies. The same exact light particles just continue on as usual in their unknown course. Beyond this idea that there must be matter so far away that not one particle from it can reach us, is the historical data involved with the expanding universe Big Bang theory, which many people have never been shown. For example, how many of you have ever seen Figure 1 before? Of course, because of the big neuron lie and many decades of silence about remote neuron reading and writing, you can be sure that corruption has played a major role in what official science theories are told to the public. The nicest thing that can be said is that this claim of a redshift is simply a mistake, but evidence for D to B and the obvious and simple nature of the Bragg equation for gratings, which I will explain later, imply that this claim of Doppler shift was a very corrupt and intentionally dishonest claim that the authors knew was false, and that is mass-marketed to the public like so many other famous claims. Oswald killed JFK. Sirhan killed RFK. 9/11 was 19 hijackers, etc. While any other theory, in particular the truth, is mostly banned from the market. In the 1800s, it was thought that the changing position of spectral lines could be used to measure the Doppler shift of celestial objects, how the frequency of light from a light source changes because of the relative motion of the light source toward or away from the viewer. Slipher was the first to measure the supposed Doppler shift of other galaxies by comparing the positions of two common absorption lines attributed to calcium, publishing it, without any photos, in 1913. To my knowledge, the first actual image of these shifted calcium absorption lines was not made public until Milton Humason published some in a famous photo in 1936. See Figure 1. Looking at this photo more closely, we see the visible spectrum of 5 different galaxies, although only in black and white. The two calcium absorption lines are apparent on the left, blue, end of the spectrum. Now notice how the overall width of the spectrum becomes smaller for each more distant light source. A result of this reduction in spectrum size is that the calcium lines appear to be closer to the center of the spectrum, just as part of the red end of the spectrum appears to shift in the blue direction, to the left. Are we to believe that part of this galaxy, the blue end, is moving rapidly away from us, but another part, the red end, is moving rapidly toward us? Figure 1, image from a 1936 Milton Humason paper. Notice how the spectrum size gets smaller for each smaller light source, which, in turn, moves the two absorption lines closer to the center of the spectrum. In the bottom spectrum, is part of the galaxy coming rapidly at us because the right, red end is blue shifted? As obvious as this observation is, no major astronomers have publicly stated the claimed redshift of these 1936 spectra is not accurate because the spectra have different widths. It seems very likely to me that most of this shifting is due to the different sizes of the spectra. But in addition, some of this shifting may be the result of the simple Bragg equation, as I will explain later. Because for each particular frequency of light reflected from a grating, there is a specific angle of incidence required. As a result, from simple trigonometry, that angle must occur at different positions along the grating for two light sources of different distance. See Figure 8. So this shifting of the calcium lines and the spectrum in general is not a shifting of frequency, but most likely a shifting of spectral line position only, because the light sources are different in size and distance. The 1936 spectra have an obvious problem with scale. The size of each spectrum is not equal. When we stretch out the spectra to make them all equal in width, most of the apparent shift disappears. Then, 20 years later, after World War II, in 1956, Humason, this time with astronomers Mile and Sandage, mysteriously revisit the redshift claim after 20 years of silence, and publish a second infamous photo. See Figure 2. Unlike the first 1936 photo, not only are the calcium absorption lines in this photo much more difficult to see, but their supposed position relative to the rest of the spectrum is far from their appearance for the galaxies in the 1936 photo. The only other photos of the full visible spectrum with the calcium absorption lines that I have ever seen are derived, apparently, from these 1956 spectrographs. These are the famous 5 spectra that are printed in some even modern astronomy textbooks, and most likely the spectra shown in Carl Sagan's 1984 PBS television series, Cosmos. See my paper on the web to see that image. The Cosmos photo has apparently been colorized, because there is no way that the full spectrum of a galaxy can have no color red in it. But if we then recolorize it, making the rightmost part red, then it is apparent that the frequencies of this spectrum do not match the frequencies of the reference spectrum, hydrogen, for which red is farther away to the right. So here again, we are confronted with the truth that spectral lines change position depending on the size and distance of the light source, just as the Bragg equation requires. Figure 2, image from Humason, Mile, and Sandage's 1956 paper, where a much bigger shift is claimed. I see the two absorption lines in the top 2 spectra in their usual positions, but in the bottom 3, a pair of similarly clear absorption lines are not apparent. If this was a pregnancy test, I would want another. If I am wrong, where are all the color photos like Humason's black and white 1936 Figure 1 and 1956 Figure 2 images showing the public the shifted calcium absorption lines? I have yet to see any other images of the supposed shifted calcium absorption lines other than those 2 from Humason in 1936 and 1956. Even a modern astronomy book like Astronomy, A Beginner's Guide to the Universe, 2004, includes the same exact above spectra images published back in 1956. Is there no more modern, or even any, other image of the shifted calcium absorption lines? This suspicious photo is becoming iconic and representative of fascism facilitated by DWW in the United States, like the altered Life magazine cover photo of Lee Harvey Oswald, the fall guy for the actual JFK murderer. Perhaps some amateur or even professional astronomers will be able to provide more spectra of those same galaxies Humason published, either showing or not showing calcium absorption line shift. Note that whenever anybody doubts the expanding universe, insiders instantly present the only other alternative as being the steady-state universe theory, an unlikely theory, with all due respect, created by the astronomer Fred Hoyle in 1948, in which matter is constantly being created from empty space and destroyed in the universe. The simple answer to a continuous creation or steady-state theory is that there is no need to create or destroy matter when all matter is made of light particles that are never created or destroyed, but simply move around in the space of the universe. Again, D2BW consumers all know this, but are paid and/or coerced by their D2BW dealer to play dumb and pretend to be completely unaware of a matter was always here and is never created or destroyed universe theory.